The amazing digital circus. Where do I even start? When the pilot released on October 13th, 2023, suddenly the entire universe just shifted. We unlocked a new canon event. It reached a new level of virality and popularity that hadn't been seen on YouTube for a long time. It skyrocketed Glitch's reputation and popularity and brought the world of independent animation into the mainstream and created an incredibly large fan base that was unheard of for a pilot, an indie animation pilot. Now, you can imagine how frustrating it is when such a mature, adult, detailed series made for 12s and up can also create such a horny fan base. Along with the positive stuff it's done, TADC has also been responsible for the next generation of brainwash, thanks in part to the return of the content farms and people treating the series like it's for babies, when in actuality, if you watch the pilot for more than 2 minutes, you realize that this shit ain't for kids. That's the humor of it. Such colourful characters juxtaposed with such horrific trauma. On top of that, every time something remotely happened with the series, there would be a large barrage of fans that would complain and dox and overall make everything worse. Leaks, people getting banned, merch controversy, shipping wars, and of course, all the porn. Now, don't let all this crap discourage you from watching this show. I was interested in this when the first teaser dropped back in January of 2023, and I've been on their show side since day one. I've been there for every episode premiere, including the final one. Although I wasn't able to go see the last episode in cinemas, I have done my part to not engage in any digital circus content for 2 weeks in order to avoid getting spoiled. And I'm still going strong. In case you're wondering, I'm writing this before episode 9 releases. If you don't believe me, take a look at this photo. That's irrefutable evidence. So before episode 9 drops for us non-cinema plebeians, I thought I might as well review the first 8 episodes, all of which I haven't seen in full since their premiere, so it's kind of weird seeing everything again from the start. I'm excited for this review, so let's get started. So for those who don't know the plot of the show somehow, it's about a young woman who gets trapped in this place called the Amazing Digital Circus, run by an AI ringmaster named Kane. After she can't remember her name, she's designated as Pomni. While there, she meets a group of other colourful characters, including Jax, a guy who fancies himself as the jokester of the group, whose avatar is a humanoid rabbit, Ragatha, a woman who tries to be nice and friendly to everyone, whose avatar is a doll, Gangle, a depressed woman whose avatar is a mask and ribbons, Zubul, an irritable person whose avatar is an interchangeable collection of body pieces, and Kinger, the oldest person there, who's gone insane and is quite crazy. His avatar is a chess piece. Together, they go on adventures, but Kane knows more than he lets on, and Pomni begins to encourage the others to be more open and work together. Episode 1. Pilot. Here it is. The video that started it all. The first episode sees Pomni be introduced into the circus. Kane's first adventure for Pomni is to capture these creatures called gloinks. While there, she thinks she sees an exit, and the others tell her about a guy named Kaufmo, who also allegedly saw the exit. When her, Jax, and Ragatha investigate, they find that he's abstracted, which happens when you lose all hope in life. Meanwhile, Kinger and Gangle look for the gloinks, who have kidnapped Zubul. When Pomni goes to look for Kane, she finds and enters the exit door, going insane and ending up in the void. Right off the bat, the show is very interesting. We see a lot of intrigue and mystery in what is actually happening, as Kane knows more than he lets on. Being the first episode, it's a little rough around the edges. The animation is good, but compared to how beautiful and detailed the later episodes are, this episode's animation looks a bit stilted and janky by comparison. The lighting also looks off in some scenes and some models look weird, but it's still good. It kind of gives off that 90s computer aesthetic. That was abandoned as the show went on due to wanting to make the animation look good. The voice acting is also weird in this episode. You could tell they were getting a grip on their characters and didn't know what to exactly do for them yet. especially Michael Kovac as Jax. He sounds a bit sleazy in this episode. I'm glad he changed up his voice a bit later for the later episodes because it is very rough here. I also feel like all the characters are one note in this episode. I know that's the point as we learn more about them later, but even other shows' first episodes could have the characters have more than one personality. However, this is still a good first episode. The writing and humor are great, with a lot of great and memorable moments. The foreshadowing is also great, as we see stuff here that will be paid off in later episodes. The score is iconic, as is that all-timer ending. That shot of Pomni insanely smiling has become a symbol of indie animation. Overall, this episode is a good start to the show, but there is room for improvement. I give it an 8 out of 10. Episode 2, Candy Carrier Chaos. This is where the improvements begin. The episode follows the gang being sent on a candy-themed adventure, where Pomni apparently accidentally no-clips out of the map backroom style with an NPC named Gummigoo, who has an existential crisis about what it means to be an NPC and just what it means to live in general. This is where the writing takes a turn. Pomni's dilemma this episode is feeling alone due to the fact that she's new to this circus and is already unstable. The episode begins with a nightmare where she abstracts and no one really cares. So seeing someone else on the same wavelength as her, finding out your whole reality has been shattered, is, comforting for Pomni because she's not alone. The scene where her and Gummigoo talk about it is one of the best in the show. The B-plot of the other characters is hilarious. I find everyone complaining about Jax being too much of an asshole to be hilarious, especially since this is the first episode where we see a crack in his persona during Kaufmo's funeral. We also get a nice moment between Ragatha and Kinger that foreshadows both episodes 3 and 6. Gummigoo's sudden death is both shocking and hilarious as it comes out of complete nowhere. It's a testament to the show's great black comedy. The ending with Kaufmo's funeral is also emotional and shows that Pomni isn't entirely alone, as I said. God, I can't wait for this to be shattered in episode 9. Yeah, the animation is improved upon as well, being a lot more expressive and smoother. Episode 2 is a big improvement over the first in many aspects. I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. Episode 3, The Mystery of Mildenhall Manor. This is the first fantastic episode of TADC in my opinion. The episode follows Pomni and Kinger getting stuck in the bad route of this mansion adventure, where they end up getting stuck in literal hell and facing off with demons and ghouls. Pomni begins to notice that Kinger is becoming lucid. Meanwhile, Kane asks why Zubul doesn't partake in any adventures. The reason why this episode is so fantastic is because of the writing. The scene between Pomni and Kinger, where Kinger reveals why he likes the dark so much, is incredible and a 10 out of 10 moment. Only helped by the later scene, where they walk through the dark alley together while holding their breath. Kinger lights up. Such a beautiful shot. The other great scene is with Kane and Zubul. Before this episode premiered, I was excited to finally see some attention be given to Zubul, who so far was basically a background character. Their character is incredibly interesting, and the way they almost break Kane shows how fragile his mental state is, which is we see the first crack in that in this episode. The dark comedy is top-notch in this episode, as is the animation and music. Once again, certain characters feel left out of and underutilized, mainly Jax, Ragatha, and Gangle. They do their own thing off-screen, and the cut-off between Jax just being annoying and then him being tied up in a goddamn wheelbarrow is funny. But I'm sure it would have been funny. As I said, it would have been funny to see what the hell could have happened to Jax. One thing the later episodes do, 5 and onward, is that they pay attention to all the characters rather than just a couple. They work off each other very well and have a lot of great chemistry, which improves as the series goes on. This is a fantastic episode and I give it a 9 out of 10. Episode 4, Fast Food Masquerade. This episode isn't as strong as the previous one, but it's still better than the first two. The adventure this time is working in fast food, with Gangle being the focus this time. As you can see from the thumbnail, she's given a plastic mask by Zubul so it won't break as easily, but eventually, Gangle begins to go a bit cuckoo cuckoo and almost abstracts. Yeah. This episode's depiction of depression and isolation is what makes it special. as the character of Gangle literally puts on a fake face to hide her true emotions. I wonder how that sounds like. It's subtle and I like it. The voice acting from Marissa Lenti is incredibly strong here, as is the others, but we'll get to that in a bit. The scenes with Pomni, quote-unquote, reuniting with Gummigoo were nice. And the fact she got an actual goodbye with him, even if he doesn't remember who she is, was great. It was a satisfying conclusion to that arc, and he didn't need to come back at all. I like that this episode subverts the therapy thing that happened for episodes 2 and 3, with Gango going back to her boss persona before Pomni could really get into the weeds of her problem. I like that, as it's another way of showing that depression is not something that can be solved with a simple chat. No, while Pomni does even better than that. When Gangle is about to abstract, Pomni says that she will close the restaurant and Gangle can leave before her. That inadvertently saves Gangle, and it's an incredible moment. The ending also sown the seeds for Gangle and Zubal's friendship. ? Is sweet as well. On top of that, Ragatha is high this episode and is hilarious, and Jax's persona wanes quite a bit this episode, leading to some funny but also realistic moments. This episode really captures the misery of working fast food well. Not that I know what it's like because I never work fast food, nor will I ever, since, all I hear is just terrible things and just not fun stuff. This episode really, as I said, it captures it well. As I said, it's weaker than the third episode, mainly in the pacing, as well as the fact that Zubal, despite being on the adventure this time, still gets a little screen time. However, it doesn't ruin the episode. It's still a great episode, and I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Episode 5, Untitled. Once again, another fantastic episode, the best so far. In this one, the gang goes on adventures from the suggestion box in a lightning round, where we learn a lot more about the characters as well as seeing how they work off each other as a group. I know my plot synopsis are short, but I want to get into the meat and bones of this show. Like episode 3, the strongest thing about this episode is the writing and characters. The bar scene is the best scene in the episode, as we find out what the characters did before they went into the circus, aside from Jackson Kinger for obvious reasons. When Ragatha goes over her past, it's genuinely heartbreaking, which only makes the next scene in the softball game sadder, as she snaps at Jax. This is the first time we see Ragatha actually snap at someone. The friendship between Pomni and Jax begins to develop this episode, and it's incredibly sad watching this again, knowing what we know now. These episodes sow seeds that will be sprouted in the masterpiece that is episode 6. Spoilers for episode 6. Also spoilers for the entire show, I forgot to mention that. On top of the fantastic writing and characterization, the animation has some very unique moments this episode. Mainly the anime scene and the intermission. The colors are also very pretty. This episode is also hilarious, well-paced, and has more great voice acting. 2 problems make me hold it back from a 10 out of 10 bliss, however. 1, the lack of music. This episode is weirdly musicless and a lot of the time, and it's very odd, leading to some emptiness with some scenes. 2, some of the adventures in the beginning are brushed by pretty quickly. Like, I wanted to see more of the anime and hunting adventures. Despite that, I still adore this episode and see it as a sort of calm before the storm, where the following 3 episodes display a cavalcade of oh shit moments. 9.5 out of 10. Episode 6, They All Get Guns. This episode. Holy shit, man. This episode. This is a masterpiece, through and through. While Kane prepares the favorite character awards, he has the group do a battle royale with guns. Pomni teams up with Jax, Ragatha with Kinger, and Zubal with Gangle. Like the last episode, stuff is planted here that is paid off brilliantly. This episode has fantastic moments with all 3 teams. The talk between Ragatha and Kinger is amazing in all regards, especially the voice acting. We see that they share a deeper bond and a connection than first thought. The scenes with Zubal and Gangle are also fantastic. They work incredibly well together. I shut them and no one can stop me. They have many great moments, and the scene where they both shoot the hell out of Pomni and Jax is badass as hell. Speaking of which, Jesus fucking Christ, Pomni and Jax. Their dynamic in this episode is what makes it a 10 out of 10 in my eyes. It's pure perfection and good character writing and pure tragedy. I don't need to tell you why their argument is the best scene in the episode. Nay, the best scene in the entire series so far, in my opinion. It cannot be put into words how fantastic this is. The way Pomni tears down Jax's entire persona and the way Jax breaks down is pure perfection. It's even sadder when you see that they were getting along so well this episode. It's pure poetry. The post-credits scene with Cain is also great, giving us the first clue towards the Cain and Abel theory that would be disproved in episode 7, along with every other theory. The episodes are just getting better and better, leading to the final 2. Or 3. By the time episode 9 comes out, it'll be 3. 10 out of 10. Episode 7. Beach episode. Okay, I know I just said the episodes are getting better and better, but episode 7 is just as masterful as episode 6, even though it's not as good as episode 6. Dare I say, it's the all the bells say of TADC, where the hope the characters achieve in all is destroyed all in one foul swoop. The gang has a beach day, but it is stopped when a man who has the same avatar as the NPCs reveals himself to be one of the programmers of the circus. He formulates a plan that all except Jax and initially Kinger believe. This episode's ending is the best by far. I love the endings of the episodes. I feel like the episodes English. I feel like the endings of the episodes were kind of unremarkable. Aside from the first 2 episodes, the endings of episodes 3 to 6, or maybe 3 to 5, were kind of forgettable, and the ending to episode 6 was also pretty good. However, this in episode 8 proved that all that wrong by delivering unforgettable, genuinely insane endings, where everything just goes wrong. The beach portion is fun, and I will admit that Ragatha and Gangle are kind of hot in their swimsuits, but don't tell anyone I said that. But the moment Abel is introduced, it all goes crazy tense. It's so damn painful watching this episode again, knowing that Abel was just an NPC who was faking everything, and that the whole thing was a bit planned by Cain. It makes the ending even more sad and dark. The episodes are getting less funny, not because the writing is bad, far from it. It's just the series has taken a much darker tone following Pomni and Jax's argument. I could go on all day about how perfect the ending is and how many layers there are to it, but I don't have the time. I will say this though. I was not expecting Jax to hit the red button. I knew his character would get more hateable, as Goosework said, but seeing this shit makes my skin crawl. The reveal that Cain can control their minds as well was shocking, but to what extent? The stuff in Jax's head makes you question how much of this was Cain's doing, or how much was Jax not wanting to go out into the outside world again. It's one of those things that can drive you completely crazy if you think about it. In a good way. Overall, I think this episode is slightly weaker than the 6th, due to the suddenness of the ending and leaving more questions than answers, but it's still an all-timer, and another 10 out of 10. Even though I was considering it to give it a 9.5, but I think a 10 out of 10 is more deserving. Episode 8. Let me try to pronounce this title. Je de Ful. I love that title. Anyways, my god, this episode. What f***ing masterpiece. 31 minutes of perfect television, I think? This is television. It's a show, but it's a miniseries, but it's not exactly television. I don't know. If Beach episode was the All the Bells Say of TADC, then this is the Ozymandias. No, I'm not joking. Everything just builds up and crashes down in an explosive finale. We get payoffs to stuff that happened in episode 1, and it ends up leaving you depressed and hopeless. I'm not saying this episode is better than Ozymandias. I'm also not saying it. Anyways, this episode focuses on the gang being tormented by Cain, not Cain's, sounds like a restaurant chain, who's gone mad with power and rage. The gang also finds out that Kinger was one of the original programmers of Cain, that he knows a way to control him. The rest of the group take turns distracting Cain, but he catches on and they all grill him for being a terrible host, which doesn't lead to anything bad whatsoever. This episode, like I said, gives payoff to a lot of stuff from every episode. Well, not every, most of them. The digital hallucinations from episode 1, Kinger working for CNA and his wife from episode 3, The fact that they can conjure up stuff themselves on the red and blue symbolism for episode 6. Also a beach episode as well with the red and blue buttons. The red one being Kane. Oh my god, I didn't realize that. That's such good symbolism. Oh my god. And the idea that they will never do the things they wanted to do from episode 5, among other things. The scene where they all finally tell Kane how horrible he is extremely cathartic, and Kane's transition from a goofy antagonist to a full-on villain is great. Especially his villain song. Alex Roshan is at his best this episode, delivering an incredible vocal performance. This episode is incredibly tense and stressful, especially the final couple minutes. Where's Kinger is an all-timer line. What the hell else do I even say? The music, animation, writing, comedy, and pacing are all peak here. This is easily the best episode of the show so far, or of all, depending on how episode 9 is. And in my opinion, this and episode 6 are contenders for best indie episode of all time. The final episode premieres tonight by the time I'm writing this. For now, this one gets a 10 out of 10. So let's see how episode 9 fares against all the others. Episode 9. Remember, wow. What a fucking finale. This episode exceeded my expectations in every possible way. But it wasn't the best episode. So the episode follows the group trying to figure out what to do after Kinger kills Kane. Lots of Ks. Well, 2 Ks, 1 C. If it was 3 Ks now, that'd be a different story. They try rebuilding the circus on their own, but not long after, Jax abstracts, God rest his soul, and the rest of the first half of the episode is spent with Pomni inside the mind of the abstracted Jax, dissecting his layers and finding out the truth about why he is the way he is. The second half is focused on the redemption of Kane, and both halves are phenomenal. Now, as I said, it isn't the best episode, and there are a couple of factors. I know that Pomni and Jax are the main characters, but it would have been nice to spend time with other characters as they didn't get a lot of screen time in this episode. But to be fair, we do learn a lot about them in previous episodes. Like, we learned about a lot of their backstories and all their main issues. We never see Jax's, that's the main reason why it's the biggest focus. But they do have their moments within this episode. Like, the other characters, as I said, they get their own episodes, whereas Pomni and Jax are the focus. Another problem is that they don't answer a lot of the questions that are posed throughout the show. We randomly find out that from Kinger that they weren't hooked up to machines, but rather their original versions have been scanned, while their human counterparts are living their own lives. It comes out of nowhere and doesn't feel as shocking as it should be. In fact, I didn't even realize it until after the episode ended. But at the same time, who cares? This episode has some of the best writing, voice acting, and character moments. I wrote so far in the script, but there's not going to be any more episodes after this. Even my mind was trying to cope. The entire scene in Jax's head is extremely depressing, but the standout scene is the final conversation between Pomni and Jax. Everything here is perfect. Like, from the animation, to the voice acting, to the writing, to the conclusion. Michael Kovac he had to owe money to somebody because his voice acting is top notch. The song Isn't She Lovely is a small bit corny in the moment, but when I rewatch it, I become the screenshot of Goosework shaking crying while giving a thumbs up, which is her reaction to the table read of episode 9. The delivery of I did this to myself and I don't want to go break me and my heart every time I watch it. I think it's hands down my favorite scene in the show. For as horrible as Jax may seem, he didn't deserve to die. No one deserves to die of suicide. I'll get to that. Well, I'll get into what that means later. The stuff with Kane is just fantastic. His realization of what being human means reminds me of the Terminator's arc in T2, an AI learning about the positives of being human and improving themselves. Alex Rochan's more subdued voice acting compared to how he's been giving 110% the entire season is incredible, and the ending, though bittersweet, is well deserved, and I'm glad the human counterparts are living their best lives, while the original versions of them can live in comfortable infinity. Also, Gangle like Zubul confirmed? It's a fantastic episode and finale. It's a little rough around the edges, but utterly fantastic. Now, I do have a problem. Not with the episode itself, but with the advertising. Because holy shit, this was lying on a whole new scale. So the plot of the episode is stated that as their reality unravels, the cast uncovers the truth behind Digital Circus and its history. First of all, no, that does not happen at all. They discover one thing and that's it. The trailer also makes the episode seem like a more depressing episode than it actually was. I mean, it was depressing, but it ends on a more bittersweet note than what the trailers made it seem like. I guess showing only the grayscale scenes made more sense as to not show Jax's abstraction, but it still felt a bit liar liar pants on fire-ish to me. Also, as I said, the only secret about the circus they discover is that the fact that they aren't hooked up to a machine but are brain scanned versions of the original real life people, which is a good twist, but not enough attention is given to it. I mean, as I said, it's not that big of an issue as it doesn't affect the actual episode in any way. However, it's still annoying. But this finale is brutal, emotional, incredible, well written, and overall a satisfying conclusion to one of the greatest animated miniseries of all time, in my opinion. I give the episode a 10 out of 10. Now, onto the review portion. I have a lot to say. First of all, the animation. Holy hell, for an independent production, this show looks better than some mainstream CG movies. Obviously in the first episode it's a small bit rough, like everyone's got small eye syndrome. However, by episode 2, there's an immediate improvement, and the animation only gets better every episode, and by the last couple episodes, it's borderline art. The designs are all fantastic and suit their characters well. They also strike the balance between goofy and serious, as they fit the world they're in, but still serious enough to take the dialogue, well, seriously. These characters discuss some very dark topics, and it's crazy that it feels like we're watching real people talking while they look like that. Speaking of the characters, they are nearly perfect. I say it nearly because some are given more attention than others. And before you say anything, no, I'm not talking about Jax. He's one of the two main characters. Shut. I feel like Gangle doesn't have a lot of time to herself after episode 4. Like, she's mainly seen interacting with Zubul. Same goes for them as well. They get their moments in earlier episodes, but afterwards, they're not seen by themselves, nor are they interacting with Pomni that much. I get why this was done, as Pomni's dynamic with the other characters, especially Jax and Ragatha, are a lot more important. Besides, the dynamic between Zubul and Gangle is the sweetest in the entire series, and the fact that they f***ed in the credits of the last episode was hilarious. Also kind of sad because it was a way of Gooseworks throwing up the white flag and just saying, "Ish, you guys got what you want. I don't really care anymore." Pomni is a pretty great protagonist, fitting her role as the audience surrogate quite well, but also being interesting enough to stand on her own two legs. Her dilemma of trying to fit in the circus in the early episodes is compelling, but her also becoming kind of a leader of the group in a way is also interesting. My favourite character is split between Kinger and Kane. Not only are they both the funniest characters by a landslide, but they are also interesting and compelling in their own regard. Kinger is pretty crazy on the outside, but he becomes sane in the dark, and leads to some of the most compelling moments in the show when he consoles Pomni, twice, and Ragatha. When Kinger gains eyebrows, you know shit's getting serious. Kane's character is also interesting. He feels inadequate and just wants the humans to like him, but his main flaw is that he doesn't understand what they want, and it all culminates in his villain arc in episode 8 when he becomes something terrifying. His redemption feels earned, and I like how it feels more down to earth in the last episode. Ragatha is a sweet character that has an arc of trying to not be such a people pleaser all the time, and the scene where she goes into detail about her past with her mother is really heavy. The relationship between her and Pomni is one of the most interesting, and the scene of the two of them finally hugging episode 9 is one of the best in the show, though the extended period of them walking away from each other was not needed. The pacing of the last episode is not that great, to be honest. Gangle and Zubul are also some of my favorite characters as well. Not only do they have great chemistry together, but they also have the most interesting arcs in the show, aside from Jax, as well as the most realistic and darkest. Gangle deals with depression and Zubul deals with body dysmorphia, things that many real-life people deal with. It's what makes them such compelling characters. Also, they're really funny as well, and have many great moments. Bubble is the Antichrist. No, but for real, he's really funny, and no, I don't think he's the blue AI. However, the award for most interesting character is easily Jax. To be honest, I didn't even realize that I put the word interesting and compelling so many times in this. Geez, I need to find out synonyms more. Throughout the show, we learn a lot about Jax. He's the typical asshole of the group, but as the show goes on, his layers pull back and we learn how truly reprehensible and broken he is. Like I said, his argument with Pomini in episode 6 is a standout. How he crumbles in front of her and how heavy his masking is hard to watch. The final episode is when we get the full layout of his character, and this guy f***ing sucks. Jax pushed both Ribish and potentially Kafka into abstraction, and I'm supposed to sympathize with this prick. His story is horrific, and one of the saddest things in the show, only helped by how sad his eventual masking is. Like, there's a bit in episode 9 during the flashbacks when him, Pomni, and Rakata go to Kaufman's room, and we see his perspective of Kaufman abstracting. And in between him leaving or running away and him going to meet Gangle and Kinger, who are staring over the hole where the glinks are, he goes in front of the mirror where Pomni was and starts crying. And it's actually just really upsetting. Like, really, really hard to watch. More so than anything else in the show. He's somehow worse before Pomni joins than after. Like, it's crazy. He pushed his best friends to suicide. Now, I've seen people say that why didn't anyone console Ribish and Kaufman during this time? My theory is that they were best friends with Jax and they didn't feel like they could talk to anyone else. Now, just because Jax did those horrible things, he didn't deserve to die, as I said. It's just what happens when you push yourself away too much. His lament and final scene with Pomni, it might be my favorite scene in the entire show, as I said, and it's a perfect scene in my opinion. Jax is not my favorite character, nor is he likable in the slightest. What he is, however, is an incredibly fascinating, gripping, and dark, making for such a brilliant character study. And yes, him and Pomni are the main characters of the show. I don't care what people say. Also, if you get mad at me calling Jax he, despite one of the dilemmas being struggling to accept himself as the trans girl, Gooseworks herself said that you can call him either, so I'm calling him a he because that's what I'm used to. One of the things that make the characters so great is the voice acting. Everyone in this is giving their all, especially Lizzie Freeman, Mako Kovac, and Alex Roshan. Their performances are incredible, especially in the more dramatic moments when they have to just lock in and just deliver amazing performances. Sometimes I forget they're voice actors and I just get swept up in the compelling masterwork I'm watching. Roshan especially is perfect as Kane, just capturing the energy so much and being a standout for me. The others, like Amanda Hufford, Sean Shiplock, Ashley Nichols, and Marissa Lenti, are also fantastic and they have their moments to shine. All of them are perfect for their roles, and I can't picture anyone else doing them. I mean, some people on the internet can mimic them perfectly, but aside from that, they're incredible. The actual people are also really nice as well. And I've watched some cast streams, and they all seem like genuinely good friends and are also absolutely wild.
I am the master of this register, and you cannot.
I want a quad burger.
About to be a master of that ass.
My tummy cake, no!
He's almost bigger than both my hands.
We're still talking about Jax. So who got the bugle?
No, wait, I heard the
Lizzie, you son of a bitch! You're so full of it, give me my freaking bugle!
I was gonna do a stripper dance over his corpse.
Bang.
And don't talk to them about your weird, What?
Actually, before I move on to the writing, there's one more thing about the characters that I forgot to mention, but I'm going to add it anyway, just to make it look like it's seamless and whatsoever. One criticism I've heard people saying, aside from, Jax, the main character, gets so much screen time, is that no one else gets any focus in episode 9. And to be honest, I've never understood this criticism. I mean, I understand if your favorite character isn't featured in episode 9 that much, that's understandable. But to me, I feel like the previous episodes gave a lot of insight into these characters. I mean, episode 3 with Zubul and Kinger, episode 4 with Gangle, episode 5 with Ragatha, episode 6, we learned a bit more of Jax. The surface level, but there's more to him than meets the eye. Transformers quote. But I feel like in episode 9 they do get each moments to shine, but not long. I mean, Ragatha gets an entire conversation with Pomni. I feel like that's pretty good, and with Kinger as well. And I feel like their arcs have kind of already concluded at this point. Like, Jax as a character, we don't learn that much about, and there's more to him than first seems. Like, he's actively depressed more so than anybody else, and it's just he pushes everyone away because that's what he thinks he deserves. So I feel like having him be the focus of episode 9, and Kane as well when the time comes, I feel like that's an important component that people are often missing. Now, I do understand why people don't like the finale. If I look up TADC finale, everybody else hates it, so I feel like I'm the weird one here. And did you say I'm glazing it? Because I've thought hard about this, and I mean, I said a lot about it, and I do love the finale, the last episode. It is a 10 out of 10 episode in my opinion, and I'm not a TADC glazer. A glazer is someone who buys the merch of everything TADC related. Literally everything, is actively funding it, and is literally so involved in the fandom. They're literally looking at every subreddit, every Discord, everything. Like, that is a glazer, and someone who also doesn't see any criticisms, because there are criticisms of TADC, those of which I'll get to later, those of which I'm mentioning right now. The pacing in episode 9 is not that good. It is adequate. Some scenes are a little stretched out, like Kane running to the folder or some other stuff, but I feel like the pacing could have been improved on a little bit because during this episode it feels a bit rushed, which is crazy for an episode that's an hour long. But again, some more time could have been focused on other characters. And I know I just said, Jax is the main focus, but abandoning them completely is very different from getting them small moments to themselves, to reflect and also to just have their character arcs be fully 100% complete. There are some loose ends tied, but again, I feel like what we got is still a fantastic finale. The writing, now that I'm moving on to the writing, is both dramatically compelling and darkly hilarious. This show itches that part of my brain where I laugh at stupid shit. Sometimes I like to think myself as having a good, non-brain-rotted sense of humor, but put on this show, my mind just refers to a 9-year-old. I get a brain neuron activation. This show's random as hell comedy is hilarious, once again helped by the voice acting, which makes the deliveries of some of these lines perfect.
They're the two most mentally stable and capable characters to be paired together. Hey, Kinger, is that rope attached to anything?
I don't know. Let me check. What?
I'm hard enough. Packages landing on my head, tea parties, dancing lessons.
What's wrong with her?
Sorry, Jax, democracy has spoken.
Democracy sucks.
Oh, Zubul, you mismatched cash piano, I'll tear you to pieces! Constructive criticism would be greatly appreciated.
Sounds a little convoluted.
You look convoluted! I'm the one that tells lies!
Dude, you ruined it.
I'm so proud of you guys.
The comedy is juxtaposed with the brilliant dramatic writing. It can be viewed as therapy writing in some cases, where characters just talk about all their problems to each other, instead of organically leading to that. However, even when you think they're going to do that, Digital Circus, shockingly, doesn't. It all feels very natural and realistic to how people actually speak. The quieter moments are some of the best in terms of writing, though. My only issue with it is that some lines and moments can feel a bit repetitive, like the stuff with the suggestion box, or the dramatic conversations between Pomni and Kinger. However, there are elements that do feel a little bit different from each other between each of these repeated scenes. While we're on the subject, I might as well talk about criticisms with the show that I have. As I had already mentioned, the pacing being one of them. Obviously, I talked about the janky animation in early episodes as well, but it smooths out as it goes on. Also, I wish Gangle and Zubul interacted with Pomni more often, and I wish some of the things were answered as well. Like what the real-life Kinger did after his brain was scanned. Did he ever interact with Kane or anyone in the circus? Not everything needs to be explained, but I do wish some things were made clearer. Yeah, those are my problems. Back to really loving the show. On smaller elements, the score is great. It feels perfect for the show and captures both the weird 90s 2000s aesthetic the show is going for and the powerfully dramatic moments. My favorite tracks are Your New Home, obviously, but the original and the reprise, though I do prefer the reprise a bit more. Not Alone, Speaking Sensibly, Today's Adventure, and the one played in Pomni and Jax's final scene. The latter gives me goosebumps every time I listen to it, or when I have to watch the episode to listen to it, because for whatever reason, they don't have the soundtracks for episode 5 to 9 on YouTube Music yet, which is very annoying. I love you, Gooseworks, and I hate that all the shit happened to you, but you gotta speed up the music process, dude. The story's interesting, though it becomes less about the mystery of what they're doing here and more of a character-focused story, with that element only becoming a factor for the final couple episodes, like episode 7 and onwards. I could never predict what was going to happen, though, not even the brain scan thing. Pretty map I got it, though, so good for him, I guess. I can only imagine Goose sitting by her computer going, fuck, after that happened. The pacing is another element of the show that can be a little bit weak, like in the last episode. Some things are dragged out for so long that I wish that they got extra time to dedicate it to other characters. I mean, I guess we got a lot of the characters together as a group in episodes 7, 8, and 9. 7 and 8. 9 is mainly focused on Jax's character, but I still wish they either cut some of the scenes down a bit or just made the episode longer. Either way, the pacing for the most part is well done. The tone is also balanced well, knowing when it needs to be subdued and dark, while also knowing when to kick in the crazy music and wacky comedy. Finally, the last big element of the show I want to talk about are the themes. This show's themes are one of the main reasons why it's an adult animated series and not, a Disney XD series. This show deals with themes such as depression, self-isolation, inevitability, acceptance, loneliness, existentialism, abuse, denial, and suicide. All these themes apply to many of the characters. Pomni deals with the inevitability of being stuck in the circus. Ragged has to live with the abuse from her mother. Gangle not only has to deal with abuse from Jax, but also has depression and low self-esteem. Jax deals with self-isolation and suicide. Zubul has to deal with acceptance and loneliness. Kinger has to deal with existentialism due to being the longest one in the circus. And Kay has to deal with loneliness and the struggle for acceptance. The heaviest theme is the fact that abstraction is a metaphor for suicide, which is why it never happens on screen. It always takes place off screen, as that's how suicide occurs. 1 minute they're here, then they're gone the next. That's why I was so confused as to why people were mad that Jax abstracted off screen. Like, I thought the metaphor was clear, but that's on me for believing that Svanla could be have any sense of maturity. It's also why I think that Jackson deserves to die from suicide. He was a person who was struggling a lot with living, and he pushed himself away too much, leading to his demise. If he just didn't do that and just accept the help he clearly needed, he would still be alive. Also, that's the thing about suicide. It's a complex situation, and it needs a lot of discussion. I'm not well to talk about the issue, but if you need someone to talk to, then call the number on screen or in the description. Just one simple call might save your life. I think the themes are fantastic and serve the show's characters and writing well as being incredibly mature and handled with the utmost respect. Dealing with themes this heavy and dark is not easy. In conclusion, this has been a show for the ages. The animation is beautiful, the score is unique, the characters are compelling, the themes are darkly interesting, the comedy is hysterical, the voice acting is powerful, the writing is great, and the story is well told, and the ending ties almost everything together. I wish some characters got more screen time, the pacing was a little bit better, and the last episode answered more things. But overall, this show is genuinely one of my favorite things of all time. Overall, though, I know I just use overall, so I ignore that. I would rank it higher than Succession, but that is more so my favorite show. This and Chernobyl are mini-series, but that doesn't make me love it any less. I'm gonna miss this masterpiece of a series, and I will cherish the memories I have had with it forever. 9.5 out of 10. But seriously, why is this fandom so f***ing weird?